In this video, I'm going to cover everything you need to know to ensure your snowblower is in tip-top shape to tackle the upcoming winter, including changing the oil, changing the spark plug, checking the belts, and a few other things to limit your possibility of a breakdown. I'm going to be showing you this all on an Ariens snowblower, but these are all pretty generic procedures for any type of snowblower that you might have. If you're looking to have a worry-free winter, stay tuned, we'll get you taken care of. So first things first, we want to get to this spark plug. This knob here just pulls off. It is tough, so you got to use some force. Next, what we're going to do is these two bolts come out. Key, doesn't really matter if you leave it in or take it out. We'll just take it out just because. Pull this cover up and off. Lay that to the side. So now we will pull off our boot. Sometimes they're a little stuck. Just be careful and try not to pull on the wire. You want to actually grab the metal here and pull on that. A 5/8 socket, spark plug socket preferably. Remove that spark plug. Spark plug's out. So new spark plug, this specific engine gets an RC12YC. So we will insert that. I like to start these by hand. And once you have it started by hand, then we can finish tightening the rest of the way with the tool. Snug, not too tight. Cap back on. Make sure it's seated. So now inside this cover, there are two connections that go to the key switch. If those came off when you took off the cover, keep an eye on that. Make sure and just slip those connections back on. So now this cover, watch out for our choke stalk. Make sure that that is coming through the hole. And then this whole groove here, you want to make sure that this is sitting inside that, this top cover. And they don't make it that easy, but it's doable. You can kind of start on one end and work your way around. And also, this piece of plastic here needs to get tucked underneath the fuel tank there. So that's down. Line up your bolt holes, put your bolts in. Tighten those down. Key back in. Choke knob. It can only go on one way. So you see we have a fat side and a thin side. We also have that on here. So thin side being over here, fat side being over here. And then put it on. Push down. There we are. You just changed the spark plug. So before we drain this oil, what I actually like to do is tilt the machine back. So when we drain the oil, most of it doesn't get all over the machine. So what I do is just take a 2x4 or some piece of wood or anything you got, and we can lift the machine and slip that under there and rest it underneath the scraper bar. So if you're at the top of the machine and we come down, this is the pipe that we drain the oil out of, right underneath the pull start cover. And before you take off that cap on that drain plug, you do want to make sure that you can loosen your oil fill. If you can't get this out and you drain your oil, you are SOL, because now you're going to be fidgeting and fighting with something like this for a while because you won't be able to fill your oil back up. So of course, make sure you have a drain pan here. As we loosen this cap, it's probably going to try and loosen the nipple also. So some of them, they put a slot on there for us. Some of them they don't. So we're actually going to hold that with a wrench. And loosen this at the same time. It is very tight. It'll come off. We can drain our oil. And then you do want to clean out your cap. So once you really got no more oil coming out, come back to the front of the machine, get our piece of wood out, and get this cleaned off. You really don't want any oil on here when you go to seal it up. Same with our cap, we don't really want any oil on that. So wipe that out good. So I personally like to use this gray RTV. Some guys might say only use Teflon tape. You can use Teflon tape, that's fine. If you use RTV, just don't use like so much that it makes an absolute disaster of a mess. Just a little bit, but enough to fill the threads. And then make sure your finger's clean because this stuff will get everywhere. So put our cap back on and we can tighten our cap. See, and usually once this starts to also spin the nipple, we're usually tight enough. You can hold that, just go another little bit. If you want, you can wipe up any extra sealant that might have made a little bit of a mess. So we're gonna need a clean funnel, clean paper towel, remove the dipstick, wipe that clean so you don't have to worry about getting oil wherever you happen to put this down. This engine wants 530, so that's what we put in. So after a few minutes, check your oil. Pull it out. You guys can't see that, and I know this camera won't focus on it, but we are right here. This is our dot, and we are right here. So we're gonna have to add just a little bit more oil. It's about another 12 ounces or so. And then just, add a little bit until you're at the correct level. So if you are having trouble getting a good reading and you put it in and you just got oil all over the place and you can't tell, actually pull the engine over a couple times. Don't start it, of course. That'll move the oil around just a little bit. Sometimes that I've found there gets a little air pocket in there and the oil gets stuck in the tube. So now we will check our level. Oh, there we go. And now we're right to the top. Twist that, make sure it's on good. Make sure to wipe up any sort of mess, and you just changed your oil. So if you're just looking for an oil change and a spark plug, you're done watching. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. If you want a couple extra things to look out for, make sure your machine's in tip-top shape before the snow. Keep watching. So here we're actually going to pull off this cover so we can check the condition of our belts. So we got a bolt right here that can just get loosened. And then there's a bolt on the other side of this cover that has to come out completely. So you can pull this off. So we want to check our belts and see if these are in good shape. So these right here actually appear to be in excellent condition. If you have any cracking, or if you see you have any flat spots or anything, you're going to want to change these. Any sort of dry rot is also no good. And then our drive belt in the back, that's also one we want to check. So of course this is tough to spin just by hand. So if we come up here, we can actually hold the lever for our auger and we can make sure that our engine's off. It's not going to start. Remove the key and you can actually pull this over a couple times. And as you're pulling it over, you can pull it over real slow and get a visual on what your auger belts look like all the way around. So just because you see the top section looks good, don't just assume the rest of it's good, because there might be a tear or a rip. So our bolts look good. We're going to go ahead and throw this cover back on. You just checked your belts. So the next thing we're actually going to check for are our shear pins. Right here we got one here, and then in the back, we don't actually have shear pins in the back. What we have are these spring pins. So if you see anything broken or bent, you're going to want to take care of that and replace those before you have an issue. And if you feel the need to, you can grease these fittings here, 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 and here. So next on our list is checking this gearbox fluid. We will loosen this bolt. So Ariens wants us to measure from the top of the flat surface on this gearbox. So we're going to insert this screwdriver, let it sit for a second. We're going to take it on out, and then we're going to see where our fluid level is. So if we measure from the flat surface on our screwdriver, oh, my screwdriver actually isn't flat, there's a burr on that. So we will measure that, and we are right at about 2 3/4 of an inch. Now Ariens wants this between 2.4 and 2.6 inches. So after, I suppose, I account for my burr and I account for the washer that's on here, we're right at the right level. So if you're low, Ariens does specify a specific fluid to use. If you're not, it's just one less thing you have to worry about. But I don't see the problem with just using, a little bit thicker of a gear lubricant in here. It's a gearbox. It's a snowblower. As long as there's fluid, it'll be fine. So make sure your plug is clean. And we will put this back in. Same thing as everywhere else. Not too tight. You just checked your gearbox fluid. So what I am going to do is I'm going to show you how to adjust the shoes and also the bottom scraper bar. But we need to make sure our tire pressure is correct first, because if one is lower than the other, we're going to get a little bit of a lean. And then when we go to adjust our shoes and our scraper bar, that's going to be crooked also. So we want to make sure everything's square and make sure you're on a flat surface. So in the Ariens manual, it tells us to follow the pressure on the side of the tire, which I'm going to say is BS. I don't like that. So what it says on the side of this tire is max inflation pressure, which is 20 PSI. So I'm going to go ahead and use my best judgment and say that that's too much. And I don't like that number. I like 14 PSI. We are at 13. We're going to have to add a pound. We can check the other side. And I will say, as long as your tires are at the same pressure on each side, it's okay. That's really just so, first of all, it's going to drive straight. And second of all, it's not going to be crooked when you're trying to blow the snow and it's scraping the snow off of the driveway. So this tire only needs 1 pound of air. Let's see what that did. It's at 15. We'll keep it at 15. Check the other side if you need. Put your cap back on. We're on to the next. So, adjusting our height and our scraper bar. So this one actually doesn't have an adjustable scraper bar, it looks like. It just has adjustable shoes on either side. So basically, this really depends on the type of driveway you have. If you have a gravel driveway, you're going to want it up a little bit so it doesn't scrape up all your rocks. If you have a blacktop driveway or a concrete driveway, brick, whatever, you might want to have it real close to the ground, real low, so it actually scrapes everything that you're trying to get off of the driveway. So that's how I'm going to set this one. But if you need to set it up a little bit, you can get whatever you need, whatever thickness that you like to have between the driveway and that scraper bar that runs along the bottom of the auger housing here. And you can shove that underneath, kind of like we did with the wood earlier when we were doing the oil change. And then you can set your shoes down to wherever you want. So I'm going to show you how to set those shoes. So now with this on a level and flat surface, and after we have our tire pressures correct, now we can set exactly where we want our shoes. So pretty much loosen this up just a little bit, couple of turns on there. See, our bolt's loose now. The other one will get loosened up. And when that happens, it's gonna make these shoes fall to wherever these shoes want to fall. You can give them a little wiggle to make sure. So we did that side, now we can come to the other side. Loosen this up, same exact thing. Once that's set, you can look in and make sure your scraper bar is flat on the ground all the way across. Now, if you are still having problems and you can't get that whole thing flat, that means that your auger housing was put on incorrectly at one point. It wasn't really leveled when you put it on, or when someone put it on. So this bolt can get loosened, and there's another one on the other side. Don't take them out, otherwise the whole machine's gonna fall in two. But you can loosen this and loosen the other side, and wherever this happens to sit down, then your whole housing is gonna be level, and you're gonna be good to go. So after that, we can just tighten these back up. Don't forget to do the other side, and you're good to go. So next what we're gonna do here is we are going to flip up the whole machine, and we are going to actually grease our gears and our chain, and we're also going to be able to check our friction disc at that point, and that's actually what drives the whole transmission that makes the snowblower go forward or backwards. So if you have a fuel cutoff switch, you want to shut off your fuel at this point. Make sure that's off, and then we can take this machine back, and we can flip it forward. And they call this the service position. So once you flip this up, you will get a little bit of fuel leaking out. If you shut off your fuel when you were supposed to, that won't be a big deal. It'll just stop after a minute. So if you do, you see some fuel, right down here leaking, just make sure that you have a towel down there, or this isn't in a location that you don't want gasoline or a gasoline smell. So we're gonna remove this whole cover actually. We have one bolt, two, and then two down here, one right here, one right here. And then it's the same exact thing on the other side. One bolt here and one bolt here. So we can remove this cover. So we'll pull off the cover. And underneath here will look something like this. Voila! So this right here is our clutch pack. We're not going to be messing with that today. This is really our main component here. This is what drives your wheels. So basically what happens is it comes off your crankshaft, your belt rides in here on this pulley, and this is a pulley and your drive disc at the same time. This is your drive plate, and this is your friction disc here. So this right here is just a piece of rubber, and what happens is when you go to drive the machine, that plate moves towards this piece of rubber, and then that's what transfers the power to the wheels through this chain and through the sprocket and to the gear. If it's not driving that well, if you hit snow with it and it isn't really going anywhere, it could definitely be this just slipping on that metal. So if there's any oil on this metal plate or on this rubber, you want to have that very, very clean, because that could be your whole issue right there. A lot of the time this rubber does dry rot and it goes bad, so you can keep an eye on that also. So Ariens actually wants grease here, because this is what actually changes the speed that you're driving. And I will show you that in just a second. Once we get this all lubricated up, you know, get some grease in there. We do want grease, you know, just a little bit of everywhere. The way this works is it changes your speed. It actually slides this back and forth. So if it's spinning the one way all the time, and now we're crossing center, and boom, that puts us in reverse. And then as we get further out on the plate, the machine goes faster and faster and faster. So, you know, keep that moving free. We don't want that to lock up on us. The next thing is we want grease on these gears. We can go ahead and spin that. We don't want to make an absolute mess, so we can clean some of this up, shove some of this back in there. Just watch your fingers when you're doing this. We do want to lubricate this chain. And if we get it absolutely drenched, that's okay. So what I like to do is lubricate that. And then as we're spinning this, we can go over it with a towel. And get any extra that might drip off or fling onto our drive plate. So this drive plate will get clean. You want this drive plate extremely, extremely clean. We don't want any grease or lubricant on here at all. So we can actually slide that so we can get to the opposite side. And then we will clean the other side too. Get a new towel just to double down. Swing that all the way to the other side again. And just make sure everything's real clean. We can also clean this friction disc by just spinning it and wiping the towel on there. So wipe up any mess or any grease that might have been under there. And then we can put our cover back on. And this cover looks like it just slips in like that. Get all our bolts in. So tighten down. Wipe any grease or any dirt you might have gotten anywhere while doing this. Okay, so now we can flip the machine back down. Any fuel that might have leaked, you can just wipe up. And I'll probably let this sit for a half an hour or so if you still had oil in it. If you didn't have oil in it, really not to worry, because nothing's really going to leak anywhere you don't want it. But if we did have oil in it, just let it sit for a little bit. Make sure any gas that might have spilled isn't anywhere that might ignite once you are going to start it. So now as far as our auger and drive cables go, we don't want them too loose and we don't want them too tight. If they're too tight, they're going to be probably actuating when you don't have the lever pulled. And that can wear out the belt. It's going to wear out that friction disc faster than it's supposed to be worn out. And it's going to wear out prematurely, your belts and everything else. So right here, I like this tension, that's good. It's not too loose, it's not floppy. But this one over here, how that's flopping all over the place, I don't like this. So this, we're gonna tighten up just a little bit, and I'm gonna show you how. So it looks like someone already did an incredible job of putting the wrong part on this snowblower. So I'm gonna show you on the other one. So what we have to do in order to adjust this is we need to loosen this nut and this cable here. And with any luck, it won't slip. And there we go. It doesn't have to be too tight. So once this is done, we can just loosen this. So this nut is actually floating. It's not, welded or made into this stud here. So this part, what happens a lot of the time is this little ball up here, it gets seized into this bottom piece. So we have to hold it in order to spin this correctly so it doesn't break anything else. So you might need 2 pairs of pliers in order to adjust that correctly. And if you need, you can hold down further on the thread in order to loosen this nut. So as you can see, as we spin out, it's going to loosen up our cable. As we spin it in, it's going to tighten up our cable. So we will do that and leave that there, because that's a good tension. I can deal with that. And then we will tighten up our nut, because this nut gets locked up onto this piece. And there we go. You've adjusted the cable. So now as far as our gear selection goes, so as we go in reverse, that rises. So if we're having an issue that we're in first gear, but it's moving backwards, you're gonna wanna take this off of here. There's a pin in the back, this one right here, that pops off. And if you're having that problem, then you can pop that off. This just pulls right out. I will just show you. So this comes off of here. And if we're having the issue where it's going in reverse, when we have it in our drive, we actually want to force this down so it moves that plate that I described earlier. So it moves that friction disc. So basically what we're going to do in order to do that is we would loosen this. So it brings it further away. So then in turn, when you put it back on, this is in a lower position. And of course, if you put it in reverse and it's going forward, then you're going to want to do the opposite. And that right there is all you need to know to give a tune-up on your snowblower. And this actually works for plenty of different models. It's not just specifically the Ariens. So a lot of things are very similar. Some of them are just a little bit different, but for the most part, a lot of these main things that we did, it's the same for every snowblower. So keep that in mind if you have a different machine and you want to follow this guide. Thanks for watching, guys.